Good morning, Tampa Bay. What is going on? Happy Monday. Oh, boy. I hope everybody had a fantastic weekend. Hopefully, you don't have a case of the Mondays. And if you do, hopefully, I can help cheer you up. Obviously, inconspicuous by his absence. Everybody send over some positive vibes to Evan. I'm not going to put his business out there, but just send over some positive vibes to the old El Bushman, if you will. And we got a lot of stuff to talk about yesterday. Of course, I was at Buccaneers training camp yesterday, representing Channelside Sports. You may know that Deandra Lou has been over there for us last week. I will be there. Who knows? Who knows how often I'll be there? But thank you for tuning in. I appreciate it. If you are on, we're back on Facebook. I decided what the hell, we'll open up the Facebook airwaves again, even though they've been a pain in my ass. A lot to talk about today. If you're on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button, hit the thumbs up button as you're watching this live stream. That will help pop this bad boy up to the homepage if we have enough thumbs up. So I definitely appreciate that from you guys. We are going to talk about obviously what happened yesterday at Bucs training camp. We're going to offer our congratulations to the 2022 Pro Football Hall of Fame inductees. I'm going to have to talk about Kyle Trask again, unfortunately, because this just seems to be the most polarizing topic, or at least one of them, amongst all of the Buccaneers training camp. And Mike Evans listed as day-to-day. He's not in any danger of missing any time. He has a hamstring tweak. The Buccaneers are not worried about it in the least bit. I'm going to talk about Cynthia Freeland's predictions for stat leaders for the season. As we know, let me tell you, Cynthia Freeland is pretty damn accurate when it comes to her predictions. I really enjoy them because I use a lot of math when it comes to me making my projections and predictions, very similarly to how she does. So, you know, I said for me, I'm really a big fan of when she puts out her stat projections. And then we're going to start it off. We'll start it off right away with our Tampa Bay Rays. We'll wrap it up with football. Football's getting close. We're getting more excited, but I mean, baseball is almost wrapping up too. We're in August. We're in the second week of August now. The Rays are back in the wild card. But Shane McClanahan looks human again. And that's not good. We don't want Shane McClanahan looking human. We've got too many injuries when it comes to our rotation, and it comes to our bullpen. There's too many injuries. And we can't afford Shane McClanahan to look human, especially when what's happening behind the Rays in terms of the AL wildcard race, it's tightening up. And it's tightening up in a big way. It's not good. You don't want to have the Guardians, Orioles, and White Sox all on your tail. You want to have some sort of separation. Now, they are currently tied with the Mariners, but they hold the tiebreaker over the Mariners, which is why they are back in the second place wildcard position. But look, Saturday's outing, a 9-1 loss. That's not good. It's not. You don't want to have your ace looking human, which unfortunately he kind of has since the All-Star break. You know, we talked about this. There we go. Look at that. Beautiful. We talked about this. Evan and I talked about this last week. You can't afford to have Shane McClanahan, who is your ace. You can't afford him to not be fantastic every outing. There's too many injuries on the Rays pitching staff. And now Kyle Snyder's getting injured. And, you know, I touched on this on Twitter earlier. Kyle Snyder getting injured going to the mound on Saturday. And now I'm not making fun of Kyle Snyder for getting injured. Like, you never want to wish injuries upon people, right? But I will be damned if Kyle Snyder getting injured going to the mound on Saturday did not remind me of Vince McMahon blowing out both of his quads at the 2005 Royal Rumble. And I mean, Kevin Cash is like, yeah, so he popped, strained, did something with a calf, and I had to go out there and step it up. Which also is a very weird quote to me, which I don't want to dive too deeply into that because I don't want to like rag on Kevin Cash. But what do you mean I had to step up? You're the skipper, man. You should always be up. There's no stepping up, right? You are up at all times. Sure, there's a pitching coach, but you are still in charge of everybody. That is your staff. You don't step up. So, maybe it's just maybe it's me harping on the wrong words, but you're not stepping up. Like that's the thing for me. But man, I mean, if that's not indicative of this Rays season, honestly, like I don't know what is. If Kyle Snyder, the pitching coach, winds up on IL, like, is that not exactly how this Tampa Bay Rays team has gone all season? It's crazy. If you are tuned in, I see we're kind of all over the place in terms of where our viewing party is, which is why I want to filter everybody over to YouTube. But if you're on Twitter, I see we've got some Twitter viewers, we've got Facebook, we've got YouTube viewers. Hop in the chat, man. Let's chop it up a little bit. Let's talk about where the Rays currently are. Let's talk about finally being back into the second wild card slot. And let's talk about, unfortunately, Shane McClanahan looking human. As I mentioned earlier, they have the tiebreak over the Blue Jays and over the Mariners. I believe they have it over the Blue Jays, but they definitely have it over the Mariners, which is why with the same record, they're in the second wild card spot, which is, look, this is where you want to be. I said this probably, 2 weeks ago, I think now. All these days kind of like run together. But I think I said this like 2 weeks ago, is if the Rays fall out of the wild card, which they did, just don't be alarmed because it is so close and so tight. Like if they're in the National League, totally different. If they fall out of the wild card in the National League, then it's time to hit the panic button. But this American League is so damn close, is so tight knit. If they fall out of the wild card, don't panic. Don't be alarmed because it's too close. They're going to fall back out of the wild card unless they go on some crazy streak, which, I mean, they're traveling to Milwaukee tomorrow, and then they come back home and they've got the Orioles. I don't know if I'm confident enough in this team right now to say that they can get on a streak. But if there is a streak to be had, now would be your time. And now is where you really, really, really want to try and create some sort of separation, right? That's what you want. You want to create that separation between where you are in the second wild card spot and that third place team, of course, which is the Mariners. So you just need to win more games than the Mariners at this point. If you finish tied, that's fine. As long as you finish tied in second place, because you have that tiebreaker over them. But you need to make sure that the Guardians are 2 games behind. The Orioles are 2 games behind. And especially when you have a series coming up with the Orioles, that's where we need to make sure that everything is tightened up. All the loose ends are tightened. All the T's are crossed. The I's are dotted. And you're looking ahead into the playoffs. Now, do I think that this Rays team is going to be a formidable playoff team? I don't think so. I don't believe that this is going to be a formidable playoff team. However, everybody knows that all you have to do is get to the dance. If you get to the dance, you have the opportunity to perform. And if you do perform when you are in the postseason, good things can happen. We see it all the time. Somebody in the Twitter chat, exactly. The month of September is an absolute gauntlet. Look, 14 of the remaining 17 series for this Tampa Bay Rays team are against teams above 500. That's scary. That's scary when you have the amount of injuries that this team has. And you all know that I'm not a moral victory guy, but the fact remains that this team is banged up to hell and back, and they have a gauntlet of team. They have an absolute gauntlet that they need to go through in September. Not even September. I mean, the remainder of this month is not a cakewalk really either. I mean, yeah, they've got the Angels, and they have back-to-back winnable series, but they have back-to-back must sweep series, and they must win in these series. And that's the issue for the team is throughout the course of this season, outside of this last series with the Detroit Tigers, we have always seen the Rays play down to their opponents. We saw their winning streak get ended by the Cincinnati Reds when they got wrecked by the Reds. Reds were the second worst team in baseball when that happened. So you have to make sure that you're not playing down to your opponents and you're playing to the best of your abilities. You're playing with farm system players of the best farm system in baseball. I know I rag on Kevin Cash a lot, but I do that because it riles you guys up. And that's really the only reason I do it. Kevin Cash is back-to-back manager of the year for a reason. Whether we're talking about sabermetrics or gut instincts or whatever, he still is the back-to-back AL manager of the year, and you have to put some respect on that. You have to put some respect on the fact that he does know what he's doing. You don't win it twice by a fluke unless you're Steve Nash with an NBA MVP, which is a conversation that we will save for another day. But you have to look at what Kevin Cash can do with this team. Does he make gaffes? He does. He's human. There's not a single manager that has never made a mistake, that has never pulled a pitcher too early. I think that what we're seeing with Kevin Cash pulling pitchers too early, which, I think that's the biggest faux pas that he has, the biggest problem that people have with Kevin Cash is he pulls pitchers too early. And that's fine. But here's what you have to be realistic about is I think a lot of that also has to do with science. I think that Kevin Cash is pulling pitchers early. A lot of it being scientifically proven and medically proven as to like why we don't want our pitchers to pitch too much, because you're at a higher risk of getting injured at this point. Look, we talk about protecting players more in the NFL. They're wearing Guardian helmets in training camp now at certain positions. We're trying to eliminate hits to the helmet. We're trying to do this, that, and the same thing is applying for baseball. We're medically advancing as a society. And that to me is where we need to understand that, is it necessarily pulling a pitcher too early in the same terms that it used to be? Or is it pulling a pitcher too early because we don't want to look ahead and say, okay, yeah, the reason why we're pulling pitchers too early is for medical purposes. So for me, that's where it's a little bit different. Brett Phillips returning this weekend is, if I don't hear a standing ovation for Brett Phillips, well, like I'm gonna be kind of upset with our crowd at Tropicana Field. And I'm sure we will. I'm absolutely sure we will. I touched on this last week when we traded Brett Phillips away for Cash. What the hell's the point of that? Right? You've got one player that is really like your face of the franchise. He's not the best player, but he's a guy that resonates with fans. And that was Brett Phillips. And you trade him away for Cash. Cash isn't going to help you at the plate. Cash isn't going to help you in the postseason. Cash is not going to help you stay in the wild card. But what you traded away for Cash is a player that does help bring fans to the stadium. And that was the issue with trading away Brett Phillips for me, is that you got rid of a player that put asses in seats. And that's realistically, as a baseball owner, that should be one of your top priorities is how do I fill the stands? For Stu Sternberg, it doesn't always seem like it is at the forefront, if you will, of his list of importance, and that really should be. And that's why the Rays can't afford to get somebody like a Juan Soto. It didn't matter, like unless you're willing to re-sign him for a 10-12 year contract and extend it out. But that's also why he rejected the contract with Washington. It all kind of goes hand in hand. You have to be able to sell tickets. You have to be able to generate revenue. They realistically, the team could have afforded to do something. I mean, I broke down the math on Friday. The team averages about $330,000 in ticket sales. They got $100,000 for Brett Phillips. Like, that's a third of what you generate for one game. And I would be willing to bet that a lot of that stuff that you generate, a lot of that 330,000 plus that you generate per game, I would be willing to bet that a lot of that does have ties into to Brett Phillips, because we've seen it before, struggling to sell playoff tickets when the Rays, when the Rays were hosting the Red Sox a few years ago. Yeah, that's right. He did get his own jersey day before they let him go. And then they immediately took down any Brett Phillips like memorabilia or pictures or anything that was in the back. And it was such a weird like dynamic that that we saw with how that all went down. It was almost like it was sour grapes from the management and the ownership, the way that it all just like turned in the blink of an eye. And look, the numbers weren't there in terms of, his batting. Fielding was better for sure, but like the numbers weren't there at the plate. And I get that as a business, you need to have the numbers at the plate. But here's the thing is he more than made up for it with what he was bringing and tying in with the fans. This was always my thing was you need a superstar that the fans are going to gravitate to. And I don't really think that there's been that since Evan Longoria. I don't think that there has been that superstar where people are like, this is my guy. It has to be my guy. Like, is Wander Franco going to be that guy? I don't know. I think that language barrier is difficult, because you can't really have that emotion because you're going through a translator. David Ortiz could display the emotion because he was able to communicate. It doesn't matter. I've had people go, yeah, well, he had broken English. It doesn't matter. You're still able to effectively communicate and display the emotions of situations. And that for me is something that the Rays are kind of lacking. Shane McClanahan, fantastic pitcher. Over the weekend, obviously dropped a little bit in the Cy Young, but he doesn't really necessarily have like that outgoing personality like Brett Phillips did, right? You remember when Brett Phillips, what was this? I think this was in May or maybe June, when Brett Phillips just decided that he was going to turn on the Jets for absolutely no reason when he hit a home run off the catwalk. Absolutely no reason, all out sprint around the entire diamond. Like it was nothing for no reason other than being Brett Phillips and other than entertaining the crowd and entertaining us at home. That's what you miss when you have, when you get rid of Brett Phillips. And, I hope that when he comes back this weekend, this is what we see. And we contribute him. We can give him a standing ovation. And look, hopefully for his sake, hopefully he's in the lineup and he does something good. Don't give him a little curtain call too. What the hell? That's the way I look at it. The class of 2022 Hall of Fame has been enshrined. Tony Baselli, Cliff Blanche, Leroy Butler, Art McNally, Sam Mills, Richard Seymour, Dick Vermeil, and Bryant Young. Did anybody catch Leroy Butler's his speech? He's just dropping DJ Khaled and the baby references like that. That was interesting. But man, like what a long time coming it is for some of these guys. Like Tony Baselli. Tony Baselli for the longest time was like one of the best offensive linemen in the NFL. And I'll tell you, it's almost like every single year when somebody gets inducted, right? Like let's look at like a Tony. We'll use Tony Baselli or hell, even Dick Vermeil. All right, we'll use these guys as an example. Every year when somebody gets inducted, I look at it and go, "Oh wow, I already thought he was in." And like the more I talk to people, I was just thinking, like, man, am I getting forgetful at my old age of 36? Am I starting to forget these things? And I'm glad to hear that the answer was no, because there's always guys where you go, "Oh wow, he's not inducted yet, huh? Oh, I didn't realize that." Like I would hell, Invincible is basically a Dick Vermeil movie. It's not a Vince Papale movie. It's basically a movie about Dick Vermeil. But yeah, Richard Seymour, and Tony Baselli, I definitely thought that those guys were already in. But you know what? Very, very well deserved because I thought that they were already in. So seeing their shock, and we see the list of inductees and you always kind of like, or the finalists, and you always kind of like glance over it. Sometimes you deep dive, obviously here at Channelside Sports, we deep dive when John Lynch gets snubbed for 8 straight seasons and Rondé Barber continues to get snubbed. And we dive into those finalist lists and try to think, okay, like this has got to be the year. This has got to be the year that Rondé Barber gets in, right? Like Rondé Barber is one of the best, like has some of the most solo tackles in the league. He was a fantastic cornerback. He was a leader of our team, Super Bowl champion. Like he's got all of these fantastic accolades, but yeah, he still gets snubbed. And if I'm being totally honest here, I worked with Buckswire on USA Today when I wrote about John Lynch getting snubbed the last time. I think that was for the 7th straight season that John Lynch was snubbed. And I think the only reason he ended up getting inducted is because the 49ers were doing good. And I think that's the only reason why, because they wanted to capitalize on the 49ers fan base tuning in to watch and boosting the TV ratings. I could be totally wrong. And it wouldn't be the first time that I was wrong. And it won't be the last time I was wrong. I'm married. I'll be wrong every day for the rest of my life on something. But I really think that a lot of that had to do with TV ratings when they inducted John Lynch. Because you knew you were going to get the Bucs fan base, and the 49ers fan base was so over the top and so hyped coming off of that. Yeah, they didn't win, but coming off of the Super Bowl run. And I really think that a lot of that was the NFL going, all right, yeah, let's pull the trigger now. We got to induct him now. Our TV ratings are going to go through the roof. We got the rabid 49ers fan base. We've got the super loyal Buccaneers fan base who has been preaching for John Lynch to get into the Hall of Fame. So I think that was like, for me, that was the biggest thing, was John Lynch getting inducted. And I don't want to say he didn't deserve it, because he does, obviously, but I think that the reason why they decided, after he's been snubbed so many times, I think that a lot of that has to do with, yeah, I think the time is right now. We're going to make the most money off of this situation. Yesterday at Buccaneers training camp, of course, I appreciate appreciated all of you guys that followed me along through the Channelside Sports, whether it was on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram, or even TikTok. I posted some stuff to TikTok yesterday as well. The defense stayed absolutely insane yesterday. They were super hot. The defense forced multiple turnovers, not only from Tom Brady, but Unfortunately, from Kyle Trask, who I'm going to talk about a little bit later on in the show. I'm going to have to rant about Kyle Trask once again. But you guys are gluttons for punishment. You guys continue to bring Kyle Trask up to me. And you're tuning in, so you clearly love this debate about Kyle Trask. And that's totally fine for me because I'm an optimist, but I'm also a realist as well. What I noticed yesterday was that Tom Brady's developing a very solid connection with not only Kyle Rudolph, but with Cade Otton. Obviously, Cade Otton had 3 touchdowns at practice yesterday. And the final touchdown was a beauty to the back corner of the end zone, toe tap touchdown, right over top of the defender, and Cade Otton was able to haul it in. I posted a tweet yesterday that I honestly believe that all of the question marks that this Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense had at tight end will be answered this season. We've got 3 very solid tight ends on this team. And for somebody to tell me that these 3 tight ends cannot contribute collectively together, cannot contribute what Rob Gronkowski did in only 12 games last season is crazy. It's absolutely, it's crazy to me. And I'm talking about stats, right? Rob Gronkowski is arguably the greatest tight end to ever play the game. So when you talk about presence on the field, you have to give Rob Gronkowski his respect. You got to put respect on his name, right? Like, you have to respect what Rob Gronkowski has done in his career. But he still missed 5 games last season. And you now have Julio Jones out there, and you now have 2 very good pass catching running backs that will be in rotation in the backfield. Like, Rachaad White is a better pass catcher than Ronald Jones ever was. And he's going to be utilized a hell of a lot more than Giovanni Bernard, who might even be the 4th string running back at this point behind Keyshawn Vaughn. So the field's going to be open. You're going to have Chris Godwin is practicing. He's participating in one-on-one drills. He's like, I saw it with my own eyes yesterday. It's not like, somebody making stuff up and posting it on Facebook or on Twitter. Like, Chris Godwin is out there. Mike Evans, day to day with a hamstring. He'll be back out there. Don't worry. He'll probably be back out there for, I would assume, joint practices on Wednesday. But you've got a very young and hungry rookie tight end in Cade Otton. You've got 2 viable red zone threat tight ends in Cameron Brate and in Kyle Rudolph, who have primarily been used as red zone threats effectively for their entire careers. I don't think that it's a stretch to say that these 3 guys can combine to equal what Rob Gronkowski did last season. Sure, that's crazy to say, okay, yeah, Rob Gronkowski was able to do the output of 3 tight ends, but it's Rob Gronkowski. This is the thing that we're not understanding is Rob Gronkowski was still good last season, right? But to say that 3 guys can't equate to 1 guy's output who missed 5 games is nuts to me. A lot of people were responding to me yesterday and telling me, okay, well, yeah, but Rob Gronkowski is still one of the top tight ends in terms of blocking in the league. He's not. He wasn't. Maybe at one point he was, but I didn't bother to dive into that because I'm talking about what happened last season. And what happened last season is Rob Gronkowski was the 68th ranked run blocker and the 28th ranked pass blocker out of all tight ends. And that was a minimum of 20% of 500 snaps because he just didn't play enough to make it to that 50% level. So we got to stop it with Rob Gronkowski was one of the best blocking tight ends last season because he wasn't. So when you say, yeah, well, Cameron Brate can't block. If you look at Rob Gronkowski's numbers, Cameron Brate doesn't need to block that well to be on the same level. If we look where Cameron Brate was last year, he wasn't much further behind Rob Gronkowski. Yeah, pass blocking, Cameron Brate needs a hell of a lot of work. But that's why you bring in a Kyle Rudolph. If you watch Kyle Rudolph his last season in Minnesota, and you know what? And even last season with New York, I automatically gave Kyle Rudolph a pass based on him being with the Giants last season because the Giants they were absolutely anemic. Not just on the offensive side of the ball, but on defense as well. But the Giants were absolutely anemic on offense. So I immediately gave Kyle Rudolph a pass and said, well, yeah, he probably didn't perform very well last season. Kyle Rudolph had basically the same exact grades as Rob Gronkowski did. And he had a down season because he had higher grades the previous year in 2020. So you've got K. Dotton who's able to block. You've got Kyle Rudolph who's able to block. Is Cameron Brate able to? It doesn't matter. To me, it doesn't matter. All you have to do is you've got to be able to put together a collective unit, right? You've got to put out a collective unit that is as good as what Rob Gronkowski did, which is not going to be impossible. You have to remember that Tom Brady was force-feeding Rob Gronkowski last season. That was part of the issue, is Tom Brady was force-feeding Rob Gronkowski so he could get his contract bonus. He had like 8 targets in the last game because he was trying to get that $100K. I think he had 2 bonuses of $100,000 that Tom Brady made sure he got because that's what Tom Brady does as a friend. That's what Tom Brady does as a teammate. That's what you can expect from Tom Brady. Another thing that people are saying is, well, you know, Cameron Brate gets injured. K. Dotton's coming off ankle surgery. And what am I supposed to do with that information? Rob Gronkowski played 11 years in the NFL, and only 3 of his seasons he played full seasons. Well, we're just making up reasons to like not be excited, to say, oh yeah, but it's not Gronk. I get it. It's not Gronk. And guess what? Next season is probably not going to be Brady either. It's going to be somebody else. But these are the things that we deal with. These are the things that we need to look ahead to, and that we have to face reality and say, these are the cards that we currently have in our hands. Let's play the best cards that we have in our hand. 3 out of 11 years in his career was Rob Gronkowski fully healthy. And you're going to tell me that K. Dotton is coming off an injury and Cameron Brate has missed some time. Get out of here. We got to move on. We got other stuff to talk about. Yesterday, Harold Goodwin, of course, the assistant head coach, was told us that practice gets boring if it doesn't get chippy. You know, and you want to see disagreements and you want to see skirmishes and scrums, but you don't want to see fights. And that's the thing that he made sure that he hit home on at yesterday's press conference, was that you don't want to see your players fighting, especially with each other, because if you're fighting with your own teammates, the outlook is probably not going to be too pleasing when you're going against an opposing team in terms of fighting, which of course is going to be a 15-yard penalty and a possible ejection. You know, the Dolphins are coming to town on Wednesday. They'll have joint practices Wednesday and Thursday. And I think that's going to be more than welcomed for both of the teams, you know, especially the Buccaneers. I think the Buccaneers are kind of getting bored of playing. I'm going to use this phrase lightly, but bored of playing with themselves. I think that's kind of where it is. And you see this a lot almost every season, no matter what your favorite team is. Oh, if you're tuning into this and your favorite team is not the Buccaneers, thank you. I appreciate you sticking through 35 minutes of Channelside in the morning, not liking the Buccaneers. That would be that's very, very nice of you. But here's the thing is that's what you want. You want to see the fire, and as long as it's within reason. You don't want to see, you don't want to see arms being swung or players being stepped on. You don't want to see things like that. Pushing and shoving after the play, sure. Getting in each other's face and yelling and screaming, sure. But you don't want to see anybody come to blows. And that's what Coach Goodwin told us yesterday is, that's what makes a good practice, right? The defense looked fantastic yesterday. The offense at times looked absolutely fantastic yesterday. And our iron is sharpening iron as we head into the preseason. And you couldn't ask for a better situation for both sides of the ball. The defense was obviously the better unit yesterday, but the offense did have flashes. It's Rachaad White had quite a few runs, quite a few passes on halfback options, and Coach Goodwin said that he on it, and he believes that Rachaad White is going to be a good football player because he is very detail oriented. And when you're a running back, you have to be detail oriented. You're standing behind the quarterback, especially if it's an option. If you're sitting behind the quarterback, you need to learn how to read those defenses. And he asks a lot of questions. He watches a lot of film, and he tries to right all of the wrongs. We heard from Tompkins yesterday at in his press conference. We heard last week from Rachaad White himself. These are players that are cognizant of, hey, I'm a rookie. I'm going to screw up at times. But my goal is to make sure that I learn from that experience. I make sure that I learn that, hey, if I screw something up and I blow up a play, hey, this is it's a coachable moment. I need to learn from it and not make that mistake again. It's got to be a learning experience for me. One thing that Coach Goodwin told us that really hits home is that Rachaad White is very good at blocking and protecting the quarterback. And that is something that a lot of the superstar running backs in the league, I'm not saying Rachaad White's going to be a superstar running back in the league. I think he's going to end up flourishing and flowering into a very, very, very good running back. But a lot of these superstar running backs, they can't block to save their lives. A lot of these superstar running backs are getting trampled by blitzing linebackers, or they're just getting blown by on a corner blitz because they weren't able to pick it up in time. But Rachaad White is very good at reading defenses, and he's very good at standing up defenders and allowing his quarterback to climb the pocket or scramble if need be, and avoid getting a sack. So that's something to keep an eye out. Like I said, the Dolphins are coming into town on Wednesday. Friday, both teams will be off because Saturday, guess what? Saturday is the first, unfortunately, it's the only home game for the Buccaneers preseason, but it's the first preseason game of the Buccaneers 2022. And you already know what we call it over here at Channelside Sports. This is the Unfinished Business World Tour. And this is the opening set. This is the opening act for it. This is not your headliner, but this is the opening act. This is what is supposed to get you fired up and get you ready for the headliner. And with the Dolphins coming into town, look, I know people can say whatever they want to say about the Dolphins. They tampered with Brady. I know my buddy Evan Winter wrote about Brady's being disloyal to was disloyal to the Buccaneers. And I get that, but these are storylines that just make it interesting. If you let these storylines make it interesting. It's not for everybody. Not everybody wants to talk about drama, but drama is also excitement if you take it for what it is and don't make it something more. That's what's exciting about these storylines. That's what's exciting about the parallels. And now this weird bond between the Dolphins and the Buccaneers based on Stephen Ross tampering with Tom Brady and Tom Brady answering the phone when Ross would call. That's what makes these storylines interesting. But take them for what it's worth. Don't take it over the top. Don't go, yeah, well, this is stupid. No, it's fun if you let it be fun. If you hype yourself up for these storylines, damn it, it just gives you that extra excitement level heading into this game and heading into these joint practices on Wednesday and Thursday. This is the excitement that we get. And this is I'll tell you what, where my excitement stops right now is we're gonna jump right here. My excitement stops when it comes to Kyle Trask. Kyle Trask has a very, very loyal fan base of Florida Gator fans. And I don't know how many times we can kind of beat this dead horse. And you guys have the same things over and over and over about Kyle Trask. Kyle Trask just does not look that good when it comes to taking snaps in preseason or in training camp. But Kyle Trask is already here. And that's why my stance with Kyle Trask, and I'm going to reiterate from what I said on Friday. Kyle Trask needs to play every snap of all 3 preseason games. Period. We don't need to see Blaine Gabbert. We don't need to see Tom Brady. Tom Brady has played over 2 decades. He's played longer than some of the Buccaneers are old. We don't need to see that. What we need to see Kyle Trask at game speed. If Kyle Trask throws 5 interceptions in the first game against the Dolphins, so be it. Let's see if he can throw less in the second game against the Colts. If he throws less or more, so be it. Let's see how he performs against the Titans in the last preseason game, because he's not going to get any regular season snaps. Blaine Gabbert is the clear advantage when it comes to QB2 on this team right now. Blaine Gabbert looks head and shoulders above where Kyle Trask is. Kyle Trask looks very confused when he is out there. I have now physically seen this with my own eyes, is that Kyle Trask looks very confused when he's out there on the offense. He overthrew Howland, got picked off by Ross Cockrell. He got picked off by, I believe it was Mike Edwards on the second interception. And they're just bad reads. And it's okay. That's the thing is, for me, I don't think that Trask is the guy, but that's okay. Let him continue to play. Let him continue to make bad plays in training camp. We already know Tom Brady's going to start. There's no battle for quarterback. We already know that Blaine Gabbert's likely going to win QB2. There's no battle for QB2. But what we do know is that Tom Brady's likely gone after the season. And we do know that this team ain't rolling with Blaine Gabbert as the starting quarterback this season after this. He's not. Blaine Gabbert's not going to be the starting quarterback. Is Kyle Trask going to be the starting quarterback? I don't know. From what I've seen right now, the answer is no. But let him play every snap. Every single snap on offense for the Bucs in preseason, put Kyle Trask under center. Let him. I tell people this all the time. I am a throw me in the fire person. I'm either going to burn to death or I'm going to put myself out, and I'm going to figure it out. Do that same exact thing with Kyle Trask, because right now, as it is in training camp, he didn't have it. We're starting to see other Gators fans go, trade him. Well, what are you going to get for him? Snickers bar? You're not going to get anybody that wants to trade for Kyle Trask right now. And that's the problem for Kyle Trask. But you got to let him figure it out. You drafted him in the second round for a reason. What is that reason that you drafted him? I guess that still kind of remains to be seen. You know, maybe a scout saw something in him. A scout saw, hey, local guy, it's going to be a fan favorite right out of the gate. If he works out, great. Hasn't worked out yet. And like I said, that is A-okay. Let him have another season getting used to the scheme, getting used to the playbook, which, by the way, could change because Byron Leftwich could end up becoming a head coach somewhere else after this season. You never know. Things like that happen. But you have to let Kyle Trask figure it out or move on for your own sake. Not even just for Kyle Trask and the Florida Gators fan base that is like blindly attached to Kyle Trask. You got to let him figure it out. You have to let him burn to death or put himself out from the fire. You have to figure that out because you're going to set yourself so far back as a franchise by not having a quarterback and not knowing what you're going to do the next season. That's the issue for me. I want Kyle Trask to work simply because I don't want to have to figure out what's going on in quarterback. I don't care if he's a Gator. I'm not a Seminole fan. I'm not a Hurricane fan. I don't care that he was a Gator. That's why I want it to work out because that's going to be the simplest formula for the Buccaneers moving forward. Unless you're telling me that they're going to go after Lamar Jackson, maybe. Unless you're telling me that they're going to go after Jared Goff, doubtful. I think Jared Goff's going to end up playing well enough this season to get a new 2-year contract in Detroit. Are they going to go after Jimmy Garoppolo? Maybe. But Kyle Trask is already here. So you have to milk that teat for every drop that it has before you say, hey, we made a mistake. We screwed up. We're going to move on. It just didn't work out. And we're going to go from there. As we wrap up the show today on this Monday edition of Channelside in the Morning, live on the Channelside Sports Network, I appreciate everybody tuning in through all the different platforms. We got thumbs up on YouTube. We got hearts on Facebook. We're getting retweets and likes on Twitter. I love every single one of you guys, and I hope you're enjoying what the talking points and everything that we're discussing here on the show today. So I highly appreciate you guys all tuning in, man. It's been absolutely awesome. But as we wrap it up, we're going to talk about Cynthia Freeland's stat leader projections for this season. Terms of passing yards, she's got Joe Burrow at 4,950. That seems light to me. I've got a few quarterbacks going over 5,000 now, and this is. I opened the show talking about this, and I'll kind of rehash this a little bit. I love Cynthia Freeland's projections solely because she's a stat person like I am. She's a math person like I am. She's an analytical person. And she's not just like throwing numbers out of there. She's not just like, yeah, 4,950 sounds like a good number for Joe Burrow. Let's go with that. That's what I like. But I find it crazy that when you look at these numbers are all down from last year. Are we saying that defenses are going to tighten up? Like 4,950 for Joe Burrow with 17 games, that seems pretty light to me. That seems Tom Brady with 40 passing touchdowns, that also seems light to me. I think realistically, I think Tom Brady, based off of the mathematics that I've done and the analytics that I have done, Tom Brady should be around 44 touchdowns. I think as a fan, I think Tom Brady breaks Peyton Manning's touchdown record. That was my hot take on Friday, and I'm sticking with it. I think Peyton Manning's touchdown record is going down. So I think Cynthia Freeland is actually low on Tom Brady's projection. I think she's kind of low on all of these, which to me is shocking because she's usually pretty damn accurate and spot on. Derrick Henry at 1,950 in rushing yards, I can get with that. I can totally get with that, especially with not knowing exactly how much of a workhorse Derrick Henry is actually going to be. Oh, and by the way, they lost A.J. Brown. And they lost Julio Jones. So now you've got a team that is 100% of the time going to have to run the ball. You got Malik Willis. Maybe that helps. Maybe if you throw out Malik Willis and you get a little handoff option from Malik Willis to Derrick Henry, maybe that helps. I don't know. Justin Jefferson leading the league at 1,450 in terms of yard. I think that's low too. I think that is light as well. Do I think Justin Jefferson is going to... I could see Justin Jefferson leading the league in receiving yards. I don't... but not at 1,450. I think we're looking at another 200 plus yards for the league leader. I think we're looking at 1,600 yards or so from the league leader in receiving yards. Nick Bosa with 15 sacks. I'm cool with that. I'm okay with 15 sacks leading the league. With Nick Bosa doing it, I'm okay with that as well. I think Nick Bosa and TJ Watt obviously are going to be, kind of battling back and forth in terms of where it's going to pan out and for the league leader in sacks. Xavier Howard in 6. I'm fine with Xavier Howard 6. I've got you because you already know I've got my boy Carlton Davis winding up in the top 5. I don't know how many he's going to get. I don't know how many it's going to take to be in the top 5. Is Xavier Howard going to have 6 and the next best is going to have 5, or is the next best going to have 4, 3? Regardless of the fact, Carlton Davis is going to finish in the top 5. But I think 6 also is light as well. I really think that six interceptions is light because, you had 11 from Trevon Diggs last season? And now we're almost going to cut that in half? Like, that seems really light. All of these numbers seem really light. Cynthia, where are you getting your numbers from? I didn't watch the segment. Maybe I need to go back and watch the segment and see how she got her numbers. Because if you're telling me that the defense is going to improve, which is why you've got Burrow sub 5,000 yards, Brady at 40, and Justin Jefferson light, but leading the league in receiving yards. You can't tell me that Xavier Howard's going to lead the league with 6 interceptions if you think that all of these other things are going to be light on offense. So for somebody who's usually very spot on, that to me, it's kind of an alarming thing, kind of shocking. But like I said, I respect the hell out of what Cynthia Freeland does. And from one analytical person to another, I always enjoy whenever she's putting out her projections and her stats, and especially on Sunday mornings when she's preparing us for games and saying, hey, like if I'm doing DFS or if I'm playing fantasy football, these are the players I'm looking at because I've run the projections. I like those better than a lot of these other places. Fantasy Pros is a great place. Obviously, I'm very close with Joe Pisapia. So I will always be a fan of Fantasy Pros. But look, I think Cynthia's projections are pretty light all around on both offense and defense. 15 sacks to the league, I could do with that. But everything else I think is light. Derrick Henry at 1950 for rushing yards. I think 1950 does it. I think 1950 is okay, but passing yards I think we're going to see 1, 2, 3, maybe even 4 quarterbacks above 5,000 passing yards. I think Tom Brady's going to have more than 40 passing touchdowns. Whether he's the league leader in touchdowns, that remains to be seen, but I definitely think Tom Brady has more than 40 for sure. And I said, my analytics had me at 44. Are my analytics better than Cynthia Freeland's? I don't know. I'd like to think so, sure, but I don't know. Anyway, that's going to wrap it up for us on this Monday edition of Channelside in the Morning, live from the Channelside Sports Network. I appreciate everybody who's tuned in across all of the platforms. Please let me get you guys the funnel to the YouTube. It's just so much easier. We're going to do it all over again tomorrow. I'm not sure if Evan's going to be able to join us. Like I said, shoot him over some positive vibes, some good vibes, whether it's through Twitter or Facebook or whatever. Just send him a thumbs up or do something. And make sure while you're on social media, you search for the Channelside Sports Network. Follow us everywhere. We had a huge day yesterday. I think we had over 15,000 views of the videos I posted on Instagram. 10,000 views on Facebook. Like, you guys are absolutely killing it, and we appreciate it. And we hope to keep bringing you engaging and innovative content because that is the entire purpose of what Channelside Sports is doing. I said before, we're not putting out articles of injury reports and training camp updates because that's not what we do. That's not what we're going to do. We are in our own lane. So if you are a beat writer, I don't care what website you're on. If you're a beat writer, hit me up because this is what we do. We talk to you, you talk to us. Everybody's a big happy family. Everybody grows, everybody thrives, Tampa Bay is better off for it as a whole. If everybody comes together and everybody works together and sticks their own nose. And some of these people got their noses turned in the air. Turn that shit down, man. Come on. Anyway, I'm Danny. This was Channelside in the Morning, live on the Channelside Sports Network. I will see you all